Welcome to the Modern Application Development Screencast. In this short screencast, we'll learn how to use Flask to build a simple web application and run the same web application using built-in Flask server. Before we start, open the following applications on your Ubuntu desktop so that you can work along with me. Browser, like here, Chrome, built-in editor called gedit in Ubuntu. You could use any editor whichever you're comfortable with. A terminal, I'm using a built-in terminal, and then a file browser. Now I'm using a built-in file browser. So let's start by creating a folder called experiment3. So we are already in our work folder. I'm going to create another folder called experiment3 where we can work. Okay, and then I'm going to cd into experiment3. Yes. So now to begin with, we are going to create a virtual environment like we did previously. So that all our installations, all our dependencies are contained within this. So that's done by running this python 3 -m venv dot experiment -env. This is where your virtual environment will be created, including the dot. Right? Run it. Okay, it's created. Now we can source from there or activate the virtual environment. Bin activate. It's done. You can check. Sorry. As you can see, it's using the local Python from our virtual environment. So it's activated. It's going to clear. I'm just going to create a requirements.txt file and have Flask as part of it. Just do gedit requirements.txt. Now to install Flask, you can either do directly like this, or you can just add the name of the library Flask into your requirements.txt. This is one way, and you can include the version information by adding, whether you are using 1.0.0 or whichever version that you want to use. Usually the website will tell you what version it is. If you don't give any version, it will install the latest. So I'm just going to leave it as the latest. So we have requirements.txt. Now I'm going to install everything from requirements.txt, which is just Flask. Pip install -r requirements.txt. So it's going to read from this file. It's right, and it's installing Flask. It's installed Flask, right? And any other dependency Flask depends on, right? Could be many other. So just to check what all it got installed, you can do pip, and it should show you all the installed things. It has installed Flask, obviously, and Flask depends on all these other packages, including Jinja2, markup space, and all other things, and install all of them. So now we have installed Flask. We have set up our virtual environment. Okay, now we'll create an application.py file. This is where we're going to do all our work. I'm just going to create it just directly in gedit, right? So here it is, application. I can just save it just to make sure it got saved. Here it is. Okay, now let's open the editor again here. And I'm going to close this requirements.txt, is no more useful. Now let's create a simple Flask app which has one page and which prints a hello world HTML. Right here, this is the most simplest Flask app. We are using a Flask from the Flask, class from the package Flask or module Flask, and then we are creating the app. Then we are creating one function which returns an HTML content as a string, and it's routed to /. In the sense, this is what tells the web server serve it at the base root. You could change it. I'll show it to you. Then in our main, which is when the script runs, it runs, sets in debugging mode, so we get some error messages if there are errors. We probably don't use it in production. And also done app.run, right? It will run the Flask app. Now we are going to run this using built-in HTTP server, which is actually not used in the production. It's not production ready, but it's very good to run locally and do all our testing, right? So you can just run by Python. Okay, so as you can see, the server has started. It's also warning you, whatever I just said, that this is on development server, shouldn't be used in production, right? There are many other ways to set up the production. Anyway, the server has started and it's serving at 127.0.0.1, which is localhost, and at the port 5000. Remember, by default, Flask runs at the port 5000. You can change it. You can look it up. You can change the port if you want. But I'm just going to keep it with the default port. Okay. I'm going to copy the link or go to the browser, open a new tab, paste some things. As you can see, hello world. Now, this is what is getting served, right? Because I've written / here. Now, if I change this to, let's say, hello, right, and save it, that's the URL path. Now, in Flask, most of the times you don't need to restart it. It automatically restarts, and it will tell you whenever the file changes, it is restarting. But if you are not sure, you can stop it by doing Ctrl+C and start again, right? Most of the time it should restart, but if it doesn't, then you can stop and restart. It's also telling debug mode on because we said debug is equal to true. Anyway, now if I go back and say 5000, so you can see that nothing is getting served at a /. It's saying 404 not found error. If you see our inspect, all right, network, let's reload it again just to make sure. You can see it's giving 404 not found. Now the path which we had given, hello, you can check there. Right, now we can get 200 and it's printing. So this is the path that is getting set. This is what a route uses. This is the HTTP path, the path of the resource. Now you can do one more thing to make it better. We can actually externalize the HTML content. Like we saw in case of Jinja template, we don't need to keep this template inside the Python file. We can keep it outside. Now Flask indirectly or inside uses Jinja too, and it loads all the Jinja templates from a folder called templates, right? So let's create a folder called templates in the same folder experiment 3, right? Let's go to there, create a new folder, templates. Okay, inside the template, since we are using a hello world program, let's create a file called hello world.html. right? I'm going to stop the server. cd templates. I'm just going to create a file, right? The file is here. If I save it, you can see it's inside the hello world. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my application.py, take away this thing and paste it into this. So I'm just removing HTML content from Python file and putting into its own template file. You can call the template file with any extension, but I'm going with .html here. Now we still have this hello world. Now we need to read the template and render it, right? That's easy. Flask has built in, you don't need to use Jinja directly. Flask has wrapped around that Jinja and it exposes a function called render template, which actually takes the template file's name and renders it. Like for example, I can just do this and then I can just give hello underscore world.html, right? Okay, and save. So now what I'm doing is, instead of actually returning the content directly, I'm actually reading this and rendering it and return the rendered text. Let's run the application. Okay, I'm going to do Python application.py, starts the server again, same place. I'm just going to close this tab and reopen it, right? We have hello world again, but this time it's coming from here. You can see hello world, welcome back, right? When you save it, the server should restart. If it doesn't restart, you can always start again, stop and start again, just to make sure, and then refresh. Get hello world, welcome back, right? Now this is useful, but we're just displaying the data on the server. Now what we want is, if a person or a user should be able to submit something, let's say his name, and then we should be able to use the name he submitted and welcome him with that name. Okay, so which means we need a form where the user can submit his name, right? And then use that name to show him the welcome message. Let's try and do that. Okay, we'll use the same URL path, hello. We have to create a form, to get the details of the user, right? So I'll just create another template. I'll leave this as it is. I'll create a new file called get details. Let me just open another tab in the terminal so that it's easy to work with. Yeah, okay, cd templates. I'll create another file called get details.html. In that template, we'll create an HTML form, and get the user input. Okay, so I'm just going to paste it and explain it to you. It's a simple HTML document. It just has a form and it has two fields. One is an input text, other one is a submission. So I'm just going to put, it's going to be the simplest form you will ever see. I'll save this. Now let me go back to your application. Instead of serving this, I want to actually serve this get details.html so we can get the user's name, right? Get details.html, right? Okay. Now let's start or restart the server and try it. Yeah. Just want to stop it, start it again, and go back here and refresh. Now you can see that we have a form with a text and a submit button. You can see the same thing, right? Now what happens if you put a name? Let's say I'm going to put my name Thejesh. Click on submit. It's trying to submit, it's doing something, but we are getting an error. Let's check the inspect network. Let's reload it again, right? It's getting hello, getting the form, headers, and there is 200, okay, and using the request method get, right? And when I click Thejesh, you enter Thejesh and click submit, it's actually trying to do a post, but the server is telling me there is no post allowed, right? That's because we not added what are the types of methods allowed. Usually by default when you do app.route, it allows only get methods. Now we can add other methods here. I mean by default, I mean we have not added get thing, but it would have looked like this if I add it, but we want post as well, so we'll add post, right? So now what happens? Let's stop and restart and see what happens, right? Okay, just going to refresh. Let me just clear this and then refresh, and then put Thejesh here. We got the get request going, we got the response, everything. Now we enter the data and then submit. Now if you see the second one, the post happened, and the post, you can see all the details, and the form data is also been sent as part of post. You can see your name is Thejesh and go is submit, but nothing is happening, it's not showing anything. That's because whether it get or post, we're just returning the same HTML. So basically it's returning the same thing again after the submit too. So what we could do is, we could do if request dot method get, then show the user a form, else do something, right? What we want to do is actually read the value of submitted form element and then display it to him. Now let's create another template to display it, or keep it simple. Yeah, I'm going to call that as display details.html. I'm going to create another template file. I'm going to go to my command prompt, stop the server, and create another template. Okay, now in this template I'm going to do simple HTML as well. I'm going to say hello, here is the Ginger template. It's like I said, Flask internally uses Ginger, so I'm just printing the name variable, display name, and I'm going to do okay, right? I have this template ready here. Let's use the template here. else. We can do else, but there are many methods, right? Like, this allows only get and post, so simple. You can do either if it's get, or it will be post. But if you had many methods, like let's say delete as well, then you have to do if method is equal to get, if method is equal to post, if method is equal to delete. So you could do that, but I'm just going to use else if, so that it's simple and it's always clear and understandable. If somebody watches it, they'll clearly know something is going on here, right? What is going on here? So if it's else, then I don't know what to do, because it should never happen in our case. So I'm just going to print to my log for my own usage. This won't be shown to user. This is for my own use. So if it is post, I'm going to display details. Let's stop and run the server, right? Restarting. Oh, there's some error here. Okay. So I'm going to use spaces everywhere instead of tab. Okay. So it started. Now let's go back here, clear all the requests to here, right? Oh, there is some error in the Flask. So this is why it's important to have this debug as true. If this is not there, then it won't show this error. You can always see, right? Let's say if I do that, this is how it will be in the production, because you don't want to show any internal error in the production, because it could leak some sensitive information. But when you're running locally, you can set debug to true, so that you can see the actual error, right? Let me restart the server. Right? It's saying the request is not defined, saying request.method in this part of the file application.py in line 8, right? Here it's throwing error here, and it's saying request is not defined. Where is this request coming from? Okay, what we missed is importing the request from Flask. Okay, now let's save it. Let's see if the server has restarted. It has restarted, so we can refresh, right? Now let me just clear everything and refresh again. Okay, here it is. So 200 get, everything is fine. Now if we do Thejesh, do submit, oh, something is wrong here. It says hello and welcome, right? Which means it's come to the post, it's gone to the display details.html. Oh, it's not showing this display name. That's because we are not passing any values to the template. We can just, if I put a dummy value there now, let's see, dummy name, right? And if I save it and if I run it, it shows dummy name. That's correct. Now the template is working, but the thing is we have to get actually the name from the form that got submitted. Let's go back, clear this, enter the value, submit. here in the post, we're actually submitting form data. The key is name, value is Tej, which is same as here. The key is actually the name of the input. Well, you can also change it to your name, right? Just to make it clear. Username. Let's make it username, right? Now just go back, refresh it, put Tej and submit it. So the username is Tej. So we have to pull out this username from the form data and then use it in a template. Yeah, that's the next step. So that will make it very clear. So that's done by getting the form from the request. So you can do the same way as we did for method. You can do request dot form should return the form that was submitted, and since it was username, call it username, right? And we'll assign it to a local variable called username, right? And then we'll pass this username to our Jinja template, right? Now let's see. Right, let's go back, clear, refresh. We got a get, and get comes here, and it gets get details. Get details prints this form, which has a method post, and it has two form elements. And then when someone fills the name and clicks on submit, it does post, and post sends the username as Tej and go as data, and then there is a response. The response is rendered here, which is hello Tej, right? So now we have done one whole round trip in this simple Flask file, right? So what we have done, to recap, is to create a URL endpoint where you can, when somebody does a get access, we'll send them a form to fill. Once they fill up the form and send a post request, we'll read the form elements and display the message to the user. Now there are a couple of interesting things happening here. In the form here, we're using a method called post. You could have also used get, but post is the best, and it has more, it's meant to submit things. And then get is usually used to get the documents or the information from the web server. Post is usually used to send it. I mean, you could use get to send as well, but it's not usually advised. Then it is actually submitting to the same URL point. For example, you can see the submission is also to the same URL endpoint, right? Getting also from the same thing, submitting also the same thing. But you can change it. You can define an action. Let's say we can call it world. All right. If I do this, let's see what happens once I submit. Let me just double check the server has restarted. Let me just do it manually. Okay. Let me just clear it. Okay, get request has happened. You can see inside the browser the action is world and post method is post. Now if I enter a name, click a submit, it actually submits to the URL endpoint world, which is not there, right? Which we saw here. Which there is only hello, there is no world. But you could write, if you want it to be handled separately, you can write another function and add a route to that part, right? This is it actually. This is simple web application where user can submit things and get information back, all in one single file with some template files. That's it for today, and that's it in this screencast. Thank you so much. Bye bye.